And how does that apply to what you do now?
Yeah, I studied electronics engineering, so which is a good engineering career to study. Tend to fix things, tend to break things, but it's not directly related to what I do today.
Exactly.
Which is totally different. But a lot of the skills and the knowledge that I learned from when I was at school comes into play in what I'm doing today, right? So you can then learn, okay, how do you troubleshoot? How do you solve problems? Those are part of what they teach you when you do electronics engineering as well.
So what other skills do you think you've transferred from your engineering degree into technology?
Things like the use of tools or creating tools. One thing I classify as a tool, other people classify it as an application, is things like Excel. We use Excel a lot for data manipulation to compare data. So the ability to be able to use all of those office tools is a transferable skills. The ability to talk to different people at different levels, communication is key. Those are part of the skills that you learn when you're in university. You know, somebody leading a team, doing a small project, working as a group, you bring it back to your workplace, and it actually helps make your life easier when you join the workplace as well.
That's cool. And I know you yourself, you're responsible often for hiring people. So what do you look for in a potential employee in the technology sector?
So directly for me, I tend to look for people that have the ability to challenge, or people that have sometimes I call it the can-do attitude, or people that are inquisitive. You know, if you're curious, you know, somebody that can ask questions. You know, why do you have to park a car in one direction, not the other way, right? Why do you have a one-way system, right? Ask the question, and then they tell you why, and be like, oh, okay, can we improve it? Yes. You know, people that can make that's got that kind of a thought process. It might not be totally in-depth. It might be even as basic as, how do you get from point A to point B? You can ask the question, then you can challenge, why not turn left and turn right? Why go right, kind of a thing. So those are the kind of people that I'm looking for, people that will actually be interested in investigating either a root cause of a problem or challenge the status quo. Right? Why do we have a car that's got 3 wheels or 4 wheels? Why don't we have a car that has 2? I don't know why, but somebody that can challenge that. Well, they will always make a change.
Nice, because I guess technology is such an opportunity for innovation, especially nowadays. You need someone who can take the initiative to think outside of the box.
That is correct. Yeah, you got it you hit the nail on the head there. Yeah, technology is more about the individual in most instances. You learn the basics, is how you as an individual apply what you learn, right? They teach you the basics, and then you try and apply or improve on the basic stuff that you've been taught. And those are the people that became the creators, right? Those are the people that challenge the status quo. Those are your Facebook people today. You know, it's like, okay, why can't we put this online? We do it on a piece of paper. Why can't we do it with technology? So those are the kind of things that you can do with technology, yes.
And we've just got a few questions in the conversation box, which we'll come to at the end. Thank you for leaving questions.
Okay.
So my next question is, so what more practical skills do you look for in a technology person? Because I think we were discussing before how the idea of coding is becoming quite popular, especially amongst young people. You know, what is the usefulness of being able to code in technology careers?
So the ability to code means if you can apply it, you can become a problem solver, right? Okay, we do something today, we do it on a piece of paper, we write it down. Can you develop an application that can replace that process, right? I would say yes. Can you automate a process that is manual, right? Those are the advantages of being able to code, right? Now, to every advantage, there's always a small disadvantage. The more you're automating processes, you're putting people out of job, right? So, but the people that will continue to grow are those that take the initiative and see that, okay, that job is becoming obsolete. I can then go and do something else with my coding knowledge, right? I've written an application that can improve this process.
Yeah.
Okay, let me go and improve something else. Let me go and do something that gets better and better. So coding is a good example, and coding does not limit you to just developing applications, right? Mm-hmm. You can get into an organization being a developer, and you can become a trader, which means you can then take a trading process with your knowledge of coding. You can then suggest what an application would be for the trading community to make their work more efficient, which means they can make more money. And the more money they make, the bigger the bonus you get. So you can apply your technology in different areas, and that's where the ability to code, the ability to understand technology gives you a plus to get you into different organizations.
So the idea of coding is good to have, but you should use it as a tool to understand different processes, whether that's solving a problem, whether that's entering into different job opportunities. Because I remember you told me that. Exactly. So the idea of technology is pretty much in every single industry. So you work in a bank, as you said, the Bank of America, and with coding, you can become a trader, because someone who can understand the processes behind trading with the knowledge of coding and technology can actually work in that.
They can work in that field so far you get all of the regulatory certification that goes with it, but there's nothing that stops you from doing that from a technology perspective. Yes.
Thank you. So what other job opportunities are there?
There's a lot. You can be supporting the technology itself, right? So the application that you use might be sitting on servers. You need people to support that. You need people to design the infrastructure for it. You need people to project manage the deployment of that application. You need people that understand the business process, that can translate the business process to technology speak when they're developing an application or when they're bringing them together. So it's so big and wide that you cannot limit yourself to just, I can write a code, right? Okay, yeah, you can write a code. You can do other things. You can do a lot more. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. We have server support teams. We have database support teams. We have network engineers. We have information technology. We have people that look after our media, social media platforms, people that do that, So it's just, technology is all over the place, right? It depends on how you want to apply it yourself,
And so our final question for me, before we move on to the audience questions for technology, is how can you progress in your career in the tech industry? What's the importance of networking, for example, of degrees, getting more degrees and qualifications?
So it's kind of two questions. So let's take the degree one first. Degree is very important. I see degree as your door opener, no matter how small, no matter how big. But I always add a caution to it. Right? If you have a degree, if you've paid money to get that degree, you need to make that degree work for you. It shouldn't be something that sits on your windowsill. So if you have a degree in engineering, yes, it might be the first thing that gets you your first job. Go and get that job, continue working. You can improve it. You can then get an MBA, you can get a PhD, you can be anything. But as you're going up, make sure people are aware of the degree that you're acquiring so that it makes an impact to your career. There's no point in you having 6, 7, 8, 20 degrees and you can't apply it. Why did you spend that money? So that's how I see degrees and certifications. It's important, you do it and make sure it works for you. Which then brings me to the next way to answer the question as well. Networking is also part of the degree, right? So you need to be able to sell yourself. Now, when I say selling yourself, I'm not saying put a price tag and stay at the bus stop and say I'm £5.20 or something. Right? What we're saying is sell what you're working on. Right? I'm working on project A, B, C, and D. Let people know that you're the one working on that project. Let people be aware of the problems you found, the problems you've resolved, and issues that you found that needs to be resolved at the future, so that people are aware that you've delivered that. There's no point in us sitting down and saying, I'm being very humble. You can be humble and sell yourself, but you don't want to be humble and quiet, right? You want to be humble and be able to sell yourself. network, talk to people, like this kind of event that you've got, bring people in, let people understand, talk a lot, ask questions, right? It comes down to the same thing, right? Ask more questions. How do I get there? How do I get to this? Give me an example. That will make your life easier. Networking, certification, it makes your life easier.
Thank you. So, like you said, just to summarize, it's good to get degrees. It's good to, become more qualified in the tech area. But if you don't apply that to your day-to-day job and show how you're getting better, solving better skills, and solving more problems, then what's the point? Because I guess employers like you want to see how a person has grown, I guess, in the capacity to be a problem solver, to innovate. But if you can't really carry that along with your degrees, then what's the point?
What's the point? Yeah, you ask yourself the question, you constantly challenge yourself, right? How do I improve, right? So you're constantly improving yourself by that, And I can say there are people that I know that don't even have a university degree.
Yeah.
And they're working in very, very high-paid jobs, right? Because they've learned on the job, they've improved themselves on the job, they've learned what you call the soft skills, the transferable skills. These are skills that doesn't matter what you're doing, right? People management is a very nice soft skills to have, right? Socializing is a good soft skills, right? You can have transferable skills. How do I problem manage? How do I move an application? So anything you do, commit yourself to it. It's an investment. It pays off dividends every time. So.
And to finally address, before we move on to the audience questions, the last part of what you said is that whatever you do in whatever space you are, I guess if you're a student, if you're in university, if you're already working, make sure you're humble, but still sell yourself. Whatever you do, whatever initiative you take up, whatever problem you solved, make sure people know that you're doing that.
Yes.
I think you mentioned this before, that if you're in a workspace, people won't know what you're capable of unless they've seen you do it, or unless you've said that out loud. So to progress in your career, let people know that. Yeah. So we're going to move on to the audience questions now. Muyiwa, if that's okay.
That's okay.
You can either unmute yourself and ask the question yourself, or I can read out the question for you. That is completely up to you. I'll leave a space if you want to read the question out yourself. Otherwise, I'll read it. So, how would you encourage someone to pursue this line of career? That's the first question.
Okay. When we say this, do you mean the line of career that I'm doing currently?
I think technology in general.
Technology. Yeah, so technology, if you want to go down the route of technology, you have to start, let's start from reading, right? Or you might be somebody that is interested in fixing computers at home, somebody that likes taking things apart. That might be the first start, is your line of curiosity. If you're good at fixing computers today in your house, you're the person that your dad and your mom calls to come and connect the television and make things work. Yes, you can start from there, right? Then that curiosity then leads you to understanding more. Then you start learning, okay, is there any book I can read about how to install or upgrade an operating system, right? How do I install Linux on a laptop? How do I install Windows on a laptop? How do I fix it? Then as you're reading that, you can then start going into the certification for it if you want to. And that can get you into development, or you can get you into the technical aspect of technology as it stands, or what we might call information technology in today's world.
Thank you. Hopefully that answered your question. And another question, I think we have time for 2 more questions for tech, but we'll have time at the end of the discussion for more questions. So this is from Omolade Oni. How did you improve your problem-solving skills?
I improved my problem-solving skills by getting feedback from people. You shouldn't be afraid to ask for feedback, right? Either good or bad, it always helps you, right? Ask for feedback. Did I do that correctly? They will come back and say, oh yeah, 50%, okay, what did I need to fix? Constantly check for feedback. Now, but also, I always tell people, when you're asking for feedback, you need to have 3 people in that group that you're asking feedback from. One that is your friend.
Yeah.
One that is maybe your manager or a middleman. and one that you think you might not actually like that person, but that person will tell you the truth, but it's going to be bitter. The reason why I always go for 3 is the last one, who is the bitter one, is going to knock you back. But you take the first 2 as comfort, right? They won't tell you everything fully. They will kind of sugarcoat it for you. But that third person will be like, you did this wrong, right? And nobody wants to hear that. But is the person that will actually help you forward. So constant feedback will help you resolve problems. But also, it's not everybody that's got a very good memory, right? Documentation is also important. You've solved the problem, write it down if you cannot remember it. So you've got something to go back to if it happens again. Yeah. And for as much as you know it, there's people out there that are paying for people that can do documentation. So that might be another job you've just created yourself. You're good at doing that.
So write down your experiences, how you've learned from it, how you moved on.
Yes.
Then you can apply the same to another.
You can apply it to another problem, or who knows, if you have enough of it, you can actually sell it as a book in future.
Here we have time for one more question before we move on to engineering with Dionne. So the question is, what are typical courses that someone can study towards pursuing a career in technology?
I think there's some BTech courses you can get in universities and colleges today. You can get some that are directly information technology related. You can get some that are directly related to security, which is when we call them information security. Those are the people that we call the white hat hackers and black hackers and all this stuff. So yeah, that's one area. You can also go down the route of Microsoft certification. There's a couple of Linux certifications out there. There's the Amazon AWS cloud certification. You can get onto their platform and get trained on it, and you can start working for Amazon tomorrow once you know how to read those stuff. So there's a lot of things you can do.
Thank you. Would you mind writing this in the chat box?
I'll put a note on it and then put it in the chat box.
Okay, thank you. And I think that is the end of the technology sector to the talk. Thank you so much for coming. I'm representing technology, and without further ado, I think we're going to move on to engineering with Dionne. But before we do that, we actually have the second poll of the day. And the question is, and hopefully everyone can access it this time, the question is relating to technology. How scared are we for the automation of jobs? Either very scared, not really scared, or not scared at all. I've opened the poll. If you cannot see it, please let me know in the chat box. Okay. Oof. Okay. So 6 more people. And I think that is the end. I'll share it now. So 69% of us are not really scared. 23% aren't scared at all, and 8% are very scared. It's interesting. Okay. So now we move on to engineering with Dionne. Dionne, are you here?
I'm here.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm great.
Nice. Okay. So my first question for you today is, when did you decide to become an engineer, and what type of engineer are you?
First and foremost, I am a manufacturing engineer, but my job description says that I'm a platform engineer. But it's pretty much the same as a manufacturing engineer with all the jobs that I actually do within the responsibility. I first got into engineering through school. My school was an engineering school, so I picked it as an engineering, as a GCSE, where I went to college on one-day release to learn the soft skills of an engineer. And then I did it, the theory side of things, alongside my other GCSEs. When I then moved forward for my A-levels, because I didn't get a grade B in maths, I was told that I couldn't pick, further maths and physics in order to study engineering at university. But luckily for me, there was an A-level engineering course that I did get onto, so I was able to do that instead. And from there, when I passed, I went on to Loughborough University, where I studied design with engineering materials. Now, the fact that I mentioned maths was because in order to get onto the degree at Loughborough University, they expected me to have done maths or further maths. And, you know, I explained the situation as to what's happened, but what saved me was the fact that I did A-level engineering. However, the fact that I never did maths, further maths, I kind of struggled a lot in my first year because, you know, maths is a strong part of engineering. So I took the time and dedicated myself to studying maths outside of my course a few times a week with Deji, who's actually on this call. He was my tutor during my first year of university outside of engineering, and he helped me to pass my maths exam. So I was really dedicated to the course because I knew that I wanted to be an engineer, especially because I'd done it throughout my whole school life and A-level period. So from when I passed maths, I know I flew through the rest of the course, and I left Loughborough University with a 2-1. I did a 4-year sandwich course where I went to work for 1 year within a materials engineering company. Came back in my final year and applied for graduate jobs, and I worked for JCB for 2 years, which is a construction company. And after that, when I realized that I didn't really like the location of that job or, you know, the kind of place that it was, because it was going into a place of redundancy at the time, I decided to move forward and work for a company called Yale, which are owned by Assa Abloy. And that's where I became a manufacturing engineering for them.
Nice. Thank you. So you decided to be an engineer from quite a young age.
Yeah, I did. You know, when it was offered at school, when I got into the GCSE age at school, that was just when they made my school an engineering school, and it was new having the young apprenticeship scheme. And I remember saying to my mom, you know, I'm not sure about it. I don't want to commit my whole GCSEs to it. I would like to do something else. And she was like, no, let's try engineering. And thank God, because I loved it.
Right.
I do love it, yeah.
Which is crazy, but I don't think people nowadays have the opportunity to study engineering as a GCSE. So I guess your options are just to study maths and physics.
Yeah, and you can still get there. It doesn't matter how you get there, just get there. I was just really fortunate to have this and have that opportunity.
Nothing.
Yeah. Sorry, that was, I think, some background noise from a audience member. Dionne, are you still with us?
I'm still with you, yeah.
Thank you. I think we're going to move on to the next question now. And to the audience, I just want to remind you that you can still be leaving your questions in the chat box, and we'll come to them at the end. So what do you do on a day-to-day basis? You know, what are the realities of a manufacturing engineer?
In truth, like, there is no set structure of an engineer's day-to-day, especially at my job. We're given projects on a year-to-year basis at our appraisals, and they tell us, you know, what the objective is of the projects and how much money they would like us to save. So when I started this company, I was given a really big project, and that was transferring a manual job over to an automated job. And because the project that I was working on was such a big part of the factory, it pretty much runs the factory, this job. They wanted to ensure that the automation that they brought was worth the money and that it would not take anybody else's job away, but give them another skill that they can apply. So we went, so the job that I actually currently do is we build locks for doors on every kind of door. We build patio locks. We build, you know, your normal house door locks. That's what we build. And we build around 1.5 million of those a year. Like I said, it runs the factory, this job. So I created a machine from the beginning that would allow an operator to work on the machine, build the components of that job, and then the machine does the rest. So that way I don't actually remove a person from the factory. I actually give them the skill of using the machine. So we can say it's semi-automated or fully automated. So it does the majority of the job, but we still need the operator to actually use it as well. So therefore, on a day-to-day basis, I'm managing this machine. I am, ensuring that it is working, that it fulfills the objectives of what we set out to be. I manage the savings of it. I manage the payment schedule. So I ensured that working with the other company who made it, I made sure I paid them on time. I budgeted correctly. I ensure that when it gets to the factory, that I train the operators on how to use it so that I don't have to be there all the time. I have a support system that allows me to be able to do that. And then I have other jobs on the side of that as well, because I have to save money in different parts of the company. And I have shop floor jobs where I'll be building things as and when, fixing things as and when. And then I have, current products that we make. I have to look at ways of how we can improve that, save money here, improve the materials. Because as I said, I'm a materials engineer in my degree. So I look at the materials, how we can save, recycle. So anything really, like my job is never set day. The machine is my main priority, but I have other things that surround it. I can go out to other companies, speak to customers.
Which is really interesting that you say, because it kind of links on to the question that we had before, like how scared are we for automation? But meanwhile, you're here as a material engineer, wondering how you can make a manual process more automatic through engineering. Yeah. But then, like you said, you're also in charge of reskilling the previous workers to be able to use the new technology. Yeah, which is quite cool.
Of course. Sorry. No, it's okay. Yeah. Like Muyiwa said beforehand, like the scarinesses of bringing in automation is the fact that you can be replacing them with a machine, and it is sad, because we're not all here to be removing someone from their job, and nobody likes change. I get the hostility towards me even now when using this machine, because they believe eventually it will replace them. So what I do tell the operators is see it as learning another skill, because if you refuse to learn the skill that I'm bringing to you through this machine, all you have is what you currently have. That's all the skill that you will ever have. But if you learn something else and you actually get told to leave the job, when you go to another job, you can tell them, I am willing to be able to use automated machines as well. So look at the positive side, not the negative.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. And moving on. So this is specifically for a lot of the younger audience around. Please, can you explain the different types of engineering? Because there are so many different types, even I get confused. You've got electrical, mechanical, materials. So can you explain the different types and how you'd advise a young person to choose the correct specialization for themselves?
I can only kind of give advice as to what worked for me. So I looked at the skills that I had, what I wanted and what I was kind of good at, and that helped me pick the kind of engineering that I wanted to do. So when I went to university, I studied materials and design, because I know that I loved to do my art and my product design, but I also wanted to know the technicalities of an engineer. So the soft work, like working in a workshop, using machines, but also, plastics, metals, ceramics, everything that surrounds a product from cradle to grave, we call it. So from the design all the way through to its end life. But if you find yourself more on the technical side of things, you want to be on the shop floor, you want to have your hands dirty, then, you would go for, a more general engineering, because then you'll probably end up in that. Or you could go for an apprenticeship and go, heads first straight in and get the skills straight off. But if you also find yourselves interested in, automation, cars, how they work, their structure, then I would say go into automotive engineering. If you find yourselves looking at aeroplanes, how they work, how they fly, their structure, what compares to one plane to another plane, then there's aerospace engineering. If you're more interested in buildings, their structure, how we get them to last so long, the different materials that we apply to make it a good material, a good building, what gives it its good foundation. There's civil engineering for that. So it's just, what skills do you have? What skills do you want to acquire? What are you interested in? What is your passion for? What changes do you want to see in this world? That is where you look and you start. and take the journey from there, and also ask questions. You know, if you know somebody who's already done that job or is in that job, ask advice from, you know, there's people like me, Muyiwa, Ade, ask them, they're doing it. Do you know what I mean? And no one can tell you more than a person who's already doing it. And that's a good way to begin.
Nice. Thank you so much. Like, it clears a lot, because you wonder what are the differences. Oh, someone's quickly asked a question. I think it's quite relevant to this one.
Yeah,
what is
a materials engineer?
Exactly. What is material engineering?
A material engineer, basically, for example, if I have a table, I can design that table, but you need to pick the material of that table. What environment is that material going to be in? Is it going to be in a cafe? Is it going to be in an area that rains all the time? You need to pick a material that is going to weather the storm of that table, so that it doesn't, you know, erode, it doesn't rust. You know, what manufacturing technique are you going to use to make that table? Are you going to make it, you know, through a machine that uses only plastics? Are you going to use material that is fragile? They're all the things. And at the end of it, when that material is over and done and that job is finished for that table, is it recyclable? Or is it going to harm it? How are you going to get rid of it? You know, how does it die? Does it biodegrade? They're all the things that a material engineer has to consider.
It is quite interesting, because we have these things all around us, but we never fully comprehend that somebody did the calculations for that.
Yeah, and there is calculations. You know, there's tools that you can use to actually design a product and see it through its whole end life, and it will show you how recyclable this product is before you even design it. So that's really good as well.
Really cool. That's really cool. So before we answer the final audience question, I have 2 more questions here. So how can you recommend to someone who is interested in engineering and who's, let's say, 13, 14, 15, how can they demonstrate or cultivate an interest in engineering so that when they get to university level and they're applying for university or for employment level, that they can demonstrate that interest to employers or universities?
My biggest thing I would say is work experience. We hear it all the time. But work experience is so key, because when from a young age, I've worked for a lot of companies. I've worked for Bentley Motors, who are an automotive company. I've worked for UTC Aerospace, they're an aerospace company. I've worked for a materials company themselves. And these are the places that will teach you what you like and what you don't like about engineering. They are the areas where you will figure out what it is that you want to do. And that allows you to also build your CV. It sells you on to a company when you're ready to go to them, because they may be looking at your CV thinking, well, do you know what you want to do? But you can say, because I've done these things that show me what I don't want to do, and it's led me to here, that gives me the confidence that this is what I want to do. I would also say LinkedIn is a brilliant tool, you know, networking.
Yeah, that's my next question.
Yeah, network here, like we're here, you know, ask the questions, build your online CV on LinkedIn and sell yourselves to people, because they're constantly looking at what you have to offer. And if it's not up to date, chances are you're going to miss an opportunity that was meant for you. So no matter how young you are, 13, 14, have LinkedIn, you know, constantly build upon your skills, even if it's 1 skill a year, 2 skills a year. And if you don't get the work experience, then, you know, speak to people again who are in the job that you're considering. Ask them questions. No question is too small, and get the right advice.
Yeah, because I guess, like you said, work experience and engineering seems to be a bit like medicine, in the sense that you develop your interest more the more you're exposed to it. So the more you're exposed to, let's say, engineering projects that you encounter in a work experience, or just by talking to different engineers, you develop your interest by that exposure. And that's how you learn about the different types of engineering as well.
Of course, yeah. You know, when I was young, I think my mentality of engineering was dirty hands, you know, safety boots and a horrible uniform. But it's so much more different from that. You can have an office job and be an engineer. You don't have to be on the shop floor getting your hands dirty. It's all what you want. It is what you make it. And you can have both. You know, I have the best of both worlds. I'm on the shop floor and I'm in the office. And I think having those 2 skills is what sets me apart from people that don't. you just got to be willing to do it.
Exactly. And that leads on to my next question of, so how do you climb up within the engineering profession? What are the opportunities for career growth?
Sell yourself. Like I said earlier, I think, the thing is within engineering, there are so many different routes that you can take. But one thing that I have known is that if you have a skill that not many people have, or you've worked within a niche market, you have niche skills, you are able to name your price. And if you have something that a company is looking for and they can't find it anywhere else, they will search high and low for somebody who is like you. And if you have the skill that they're looking for, they're willing to pay any price to have you. I would say is the best way that you can kind of grow within this kind of sector. Learn skills that not many people have, because you will be needed. Engineers, my mom's always told me from a very young age, as an engineer, you will never be out of a job, because from time the basics and the foundations of it, you can pretty much grow in any sector of it, but have the skills that not many people would have, because somebody will always need you.
Can you give me an example? Sorry, can you give me an example of a niche skill?
Yeah, so obviously the oil and gas industry within engineering it's a massive market, but it's very finite, because obviously oil and gas is something that we're constantly trying to find. It's a fossil fuel. It's a fossil fuel. Like, it's going to run out. It's non-renewable. Like, we're constantly looking for ways to find it. So if you're an engineer that has the skills to be able to have technology that can find it, you're winning, because companies are looking for people like you that have that. And you can go to them and say, okay, if you want me to work for you, even if it's, a 3-month contract, this is the cost. And that is when you're able to step your foot, doors are opening for you that are not open for other people, because they haven't took the time to learn that skill.
Well, and we have a comment from Algar Braid. Excellent career advice, thank you. Are you recording this? Yes, we are recording this. And I will send you the details. I'll send everyone the details at the end of the talk, but it will be on YouTube. So Dionne, that was really good, to be honest. Like, learning like niche skills that can really further your career, but also combining that with work experience to really expose yourself to several different industries and knowledge and specializations. But then, like you said, also building your online CV with LinkedIn, all of that can really stand you out for employers, or even from a young age, like you said, 13, 14, using all of these different opportunities to build yourself is honestly.
Even if it's not an engineering company that you work for, if you start your job off in a coffee shop, it's not, as an engineer, it's not so much about how you the coffee that you're making. It's about the process that it took you to make that coffee, breaking it down. And you make that coffee quicker than somebody else can. They call that being lean manufacturing, different processes of getting rid of the waste in a process that makes it more efficient and makes it faster. So wherever you work, you are learning something. Think about the skills that you're having to learn within that job. It doesn't have to necessarily be an engineering job. Yeah.
And you can develop your engineering skills through completely unrelated jobs. Okay. So we have a final question, which is from the audience. Oluwatomisin, would you like to read the question out yourself? If so, please unmute your mic. Or hello?
Yes, I'm here. Do you think there are some types of engineering that may be relevant in the future, and which?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you think there are some types of engineering that may be irrelevant in the future, and which?
It's a good question.
Did you get that?
Yeah, she said, she asked if, do you think there's some types of engineering that may be irrelevant in the future? In my opinion, no, because engineering is like technology, it is ever growing, it is transforming. It may not be called the same thing as we move on in time, but the foundation of it is definitely still going to be exactly like what it is now. In order to be the best engineer in how can I build in building buildings, It may not be called civil engineering, but it'll definitely be something to do with the way that building is built. You just will you will learn different skills to get there. So, for example, I remember when I was in uni, we just started talking about 3D printing and additive manufacturing, which talks about, you know, building a prototype of something, whether it's the actual size or smaller, out of the actual material so that you can test it for what it's going to go through. Now, that had just started when I first started university. Where it's going to be, and now it's one of the leading engineering, that they have PhDs in it, just additive engineering. So it'll still be there. It'll never go.
You just learn different skills to learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's a great question from Tomitsin. And this is actually the end of the engineering section. Thank you so much, Dionne, for coming. And that was honestly really good. And once again, guys, all of these discussions will be put on YouTube after this. And without further ado, we're going to move on to our third poll of the afternoon, and then on to management with Adebayo. Thank you, Opeyemi. Okay, so what's more important for a manager, people skills or intellect? I'll give a minute for you to answer these questions. Dionne, what do you think?
People skills.
Do you think? Yeah.
Because people have to want to work with you, and that's how you sell yourself to other people. I definitely think people skills.
That's how you manage. And honestly, the results, I'll share the results now. 100% of people said people skills, which is interesting. And without further ado, we'll move on to Adebayo, who's actually a manager. We'll see what he says. Adebayo, are you here?
Oh, yes, I'm here. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's definitely people's skill.
Do you think? Okay.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Yeah, see, that no matter how intelligent you are, right, you will only be as good as what you can produce. So if you want to manage people, you need to make them work for you.
Yeah.
And the only way to make them work for you is if they believe in you. For them to believe in you, you have to have some people's skill to endear them to yourself. Otherwise, they won't want to go the mile for you at all. So people's skills is one of the most important things.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So this is the first question of the afternoon for you is, what is your job title and what does it entail on a day-to-day basis? Like, as a manager, what is it that you do and how do you run it?
I work for a company called Refinitiv Data. So usually, formerly it was called Thomas Reuters. We sell financial data to banks and investment companies. I'm a program manager for the bank, for the company, and I manage people that are people manager themselves. So technology leads, project managers, head of BAs, which have teams amongst beneath them that they manage. So on a day-to-day basis, I make decisions that affect portfolios of projects. I make decisions that affect people's ways of working. I make decisions that can cost the company thousands of pounds, and then based on the cost of the project. And every time I need to make people believe in what I'm telling, the vision I'm putting in front of them, for them to carry it onto implementation. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay. So the next question is, sorry, so you studied engineering at university, actually.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
I did.
So once again, how did you make the transition from engineering into management? And how were you able to do that?
I liked it when Dionne said earlier that engineering will never be obsolete. Yeah. Being an engineer is a very good foundation that anyone can have. In my career, I've seen engineers in different other careers and progressing very well. So I use for example, I studied electrical engineering in my first degree and then worked for a telecom company back in Nigeria before moving to the UK. Then I worked for Vodafone, worked for a consulting company, Accenture. And then while I was doing engineering, I moved into project delivery with core technical capability, started managing people that do some work, and I did some work myself. Then from there, I decided that, okay, I want to go fully into management. I mean, I want to go fully into a profession where I can affect, I can make other people do the work by giving them direction and giving them the vision of how to do it. So I did MBA, which gave me the leadership skill that I needed, the strategic knowledge I needed in managing people and in managing organizations.
Yeah. Wait, so for people who don't know what an MBA is, sorry. For people who don't know what an MBA is.
Okay. MBA is management of business, management business administration, something. Yeah. Business management administration. So I studied that in Manchester Business School. And then so it's a program that gives you skills in coming up with strategy, leadership skills, in managing organizations and people, right? So that gave me the foundation of what I want to be. Then I moved into banking. Right in banking, I managed a couple of projects in products, in risk, in investments, banking, and in technology. And while I was there, I realized that to be successful in the sector, I needed some product knowledge. And that was where I went to do Masters in Finance in Warwick Business School. So
that leads on to the next question, like of how to become a successful manager. So so what type of person makes a successful manager, project manager? And you just said technical knowledge.
The first thing is you need to be able to endear people to you to work for you. So you need people skill. It's a soft skill. You can build it anytime. You don't need to get to a certain level of your career before you can build it. You can build it from your family at home. And then to be a better manager, to be very successful in what you do, you need product knowledge. So when I say product, I mean the technicality of the sector you are. If you are in, for example, manufacturing, you need knowledge of manufacturing to be able to be successful. Otherwise, when people are telling you, those that do the work, when they are telling you about what they do, you will not have the appreciation of it. And with that, you make the wrong policy. But if you understand how manufacturing works, you'll be able to make the right policy and give people the right direction and vision. The same thing in banking. You need to understand the products in banking. You need to understand the technology that they're using for you to be able to be successful in your decision making. And another thing you need some finance skill. There's no way you manage, there will be cost involved in this. So you need to be able to manage your costs, the impact of your decision on the cost to the organization. Because as a manager, your job is to make sure that the cost is within the threshold you are given to work with, because you are accountable to some people. For example, myself, I'm accountable to some managers. There's a certain level of cost I need my program to be at. Anything above that, I have to answer to them. So you need all those skills to be able to be successful in managing a project.
So I think that's quite interesting what you said about to become a good manager. It's not just, and we'll move on to soft skills afterwards, but it's not just, I can lead, but rather you have to understand the industry you're in. You need to know the technicalities of what the people you're managing, like what are they doing and how can I help that? And I guess it's interesting to note that if you're going into different industries, you don't actually have to be, for example, if you end up in medicine, you can be a manager who has a great knowledge of different, medical treatments. You don't have to be a doctor. Yeah. Or similarly, if you work in a bank, you can be a great manager who has great knowledge of banking and trading and all this stuff. You don't actually have to be a banker.
Yeah.
I think you raised quite a cool point that as a manager, you do need to have industry knowledge anyway.
Yeah. So you don't have to be a doctor before you become a senior manager in NHS. But it would be good for you if you see your career going in that direction, for you to have an appreciation of what the doctors do.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a surgeon, but you need to know what they do. You need to be able to empathize with them, to have when they tell you, you need to know what they're going through. That will inform you the way you make the right decision that impact their work.
That's cool. So if you want to work in the NHS but you don't want to be a doctor, you can be a manager and still get the same kind of knowledge. So following on from that, what other skills would you say are required of a successful manager, apart from industry knowledge and technical knowledge?
Yeah, very key again is understanding the dynamics of the organization you are in. This is not about products. This is not about your technical product. It's about understanding dynamics. When I say dynamics, I mean what is going on in that organization. What is their culture like? You need to know the politics within the organization. Otherwise, you start shooting yourself in the foot. That you need to be able to, you need to be political in your approach to people. For example, somebody coming in, like a dev lead coming to a technology lead coming to me that he needs a new resource to work for him. I know that we don't have the funding to do that, and there's a way you have to put it to him to say no. Otherwise, you make him feel you are not empowering him to do the work he needs to do. So you have to know the dynamics of doing that, and then you be successful. You have to have that relationship with everyone around you, both those that report to you and those that you report into. Networking is part of it. For you to grow, to rise up within management, you need to have the right contact. You need to network with the right people. Like, for example, I'm in middle management in my organization. I report to senior management, and the senior management report to the executives. Within the senior management, I need to make them understand what I'm doing, how effective I am to the people that report to me. And in doing that, I sell myself, I make myself visible to them. They're giving me opportunity for better, for greater roles, right?
Yeah. So I think it's quite interesting what you said about how important it is to maintain relationships within the firm and to understand business corporate culture. And I guess that ties in with, communication skills. As a manager, you're going to need to communicate with people below you, people above you, in an effective way, and understanding how you can do that in your environment is what makes a good manager. Yes. I think you said something else about, presentation skills, being able to speak to people.
For you to, it's one thing to study management in university. It's another thing to be able to live it, to do it, right? Part of preparing yourself for management is sharpening your communication skill, your presentation skill, because when you do meetings with people that report to you, you need to be able to present a vision to them in a way that they will understand it fully without any ambiguity. You present to them verbally, visually. I mean, you have to use the right tools, the right method, depending on your audience. People come in different shape or form, right? The same way with people approach to work, people's approach to understanding things. You have to be flexible as a manager. You have to be able to present things to your audience in the right way that they will understand it. When you are talking to those above you, you need them for approval of something or the other. You have to be able to present things in the right way they want. I know many senior managers, they have no time at all. So when I'm talking to them, I know that I just have to go to the point. You can't tell them the full story. All they want to know is, what is the decision I need to make? Why do I need to make this decision? When do I need to make this decision? Give it to them, and that be it. But when speaking to someone that I need to produce something for me, I can't give him that summary. I have to let him understand the details of what we want to do, what is driving it, who is going to use it, what benefit are we going to get from it, and make him key into that vision.
Yeah. So that's that. Yeah, you said it all, to be honest. Honestly, understanding who you're talking to. Like, because I think people underestimate the importance of communication and being able to communicate well to different people.
Yeah.
But people who are my age, for example, I'm 17, how you can develop these communication skills is, for example, in school, in secondary schools, there tend to be societies for debating, perhaps public speaking, volunteering yourself for presentation events at school. It's really important if you're interested in management or pretty much any career to develop your communication skills.
Yeah. In most schools these days, you do group work.
Yeah.
Within the group work, you need to volunteer yourself to lead the team. You need to volunteer yourself to present the outcome of whatever research you've done within your group. And there are so many society around that you can join to improve your presentation skill and communication skill. I remember about 10 years ago, I was part of a club called Toastmasters. It's an international organization where you do presentation, you get feedback from the audience, and they tell you what you've done well, where you can improve, how you can push forward your points, and before you know it, you see yourself being confident doing presentation to the public. They're talking in public, because most of these things, there are some people that they're like naturally they can talk. They can talk to a lot of people. There are some you have to learn it. We have different skills as humans, right? Some comes naturally to us, but some we have to learn. If you know you're not the type that can communicate easily within amongst a lot of people, join clubs that will improve those skills in you.
Yeah. Thank you. So that's really good, and it honestly is very important for a manager. But moving on to the next question. So where would you say project management, or where would you say these roles are available? I think we covered that there.
Yeah, I mean, the roles are available everywhere. In any career you are, you can become a people manager in any career you are. My advice would be, one, make yourself visible, take responsibility, and practice.
Yeah.
Right? And be always volunteer to help others, because that's being a manager. You have to help people to achieve a goal, right? So make yourself visible, that you are always there, in as much as possible, that you feel you are competing with your peers at work. Let them know you're always there to volunteer, to lead any project, to lead any initiative that needs to be done. And before you know it, people see you and call you up for management roles.
That leads on to my next question, actually. But before I get on to that, I'd just like to mention that to Algar Braid and to Opeyemi, I'll be reading out your questions very shortly after the final question right now, which is, how do you, once again, climb up in your management careers? I think you covered it with, making sure the relationships you have with the people around you and your superiors is really good. But do you have any more tips regarding how to progress?
Yeah. So I said it earlier that you need to make yourself visible, right? Let people know what you're doing and the impact you are taking. Take responsibility of things amongst your peers and build your network. So you have different types of network. You have network amongst people that are your level, so that they know you. Your peers will know what your skills are. They can come to you if they have any issues that you can solve. The second level is those above you. You don't be shy to ask them questions. Don't be shy to have a drink with them. Don't be shy to go to social events with them and have that chat with them. Speak to them on what is going on in the organization. Speak to them what you've done before, even something that you've done after the work. Let them know that you've done this. Let them know that you are this kind of person you are. The moment they have need for such person, you are the first that will come to their brain. Human brain, we tend to retain things that we hear. So if I've never heard about you, if you have not spoken to me, how do you want me to know there's somebody there that's able to manage people. So you need to find ways of communicating with them. Sometimes you meet someone, you are in the lift with a senior manager. Don't be shy to say hello. Say hello, just introduce yourself. And before you know it, the confidence with which you speak, you approach him, it's an indication of how you can be confident in leading others.
And just to put in an experience of someone who's in school still, I'm just drawing on the idea of, for example, right now I'm head girl of my school, and I wonder how I got that role, because I never explicitly said, to teachers, I want a promotion or I want to be head girl. But just through communication with people who, for example, are heads of years, with different teachers, just talking about interests and demonstrating qualities to them, perhaps indirectly, you're on people's minds.
Yeah.
But if you never ever interact with other people or show people what you can do, you may be very talented and have the ability to climb up, to great heights. But if people don't have you on their mind, how will you, progress? Which is a really good point.
Yeah.
I like the thing you said about being in an elevator with an executive. You talk, and that can go to all situations. If you're in school and you see a teacher, or you're with your friends, just talk about different things, demonstrate your management qualities.
Yeah, and another thing I want to chip in is to be confident in managing people, in leadership. Try it from home, among your siblings, right? You are no matter what your age is, just try it from home. You can always be the one to volunteer. Oh, we want to clean the house. Okay, don't worry, I will arrange it. And you start with the siblings. You take on the living room. Okay, you take on you wash the bathroom. With that, you build your coordination skills, and before you know it, you've started doing something that you can transfer to your school, transfer to your workplace.
Yeah, it becomes, the more you practice it, the more it becomes just natural. Yeah. And so if we can move on to the audience questions, thank you for that, Adebayo. The first one seems to be targeted more at the engineering and tech side. So if that's not targeted at management at Adebayo, do you mind, Opeyemi, if I save that till the end?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And so the question from Algar Braid it's a very good question. Key to managing people is motivating them. So coaching is a key skill. How does Ade do this in his role? How do you coach people? Okay,
yeah. So there are different ways of coaching. There are some, you can coach through what you do. I mean, on the job, right? Somebody observe you, right? You can coach people like that. There are some one-to-one coaching where you ask the person asks question, you answer them, you give direction on what to do, and talk to them about your experience. I have some dev leads I have somebody in the US who's a dev lead. The way my approach to coaching him, it's more of a one-to-one than the guy in China. The guy in China, it's more of looking at the way I handle meetings whenever we have program meetings. And from there, I ask him after the meeting, okay, what did you get from this? Sometimes he will say, okay, my approach of analyzing the issue on ground, the type of question I ask, the step by step of asking the questions and providing an answer, the way the issue is steered onto the solution, onto solutionizing the issue. So there are different ways of coaching people. Sometimes through formal workshop.
Yeah. So it depends on who you're coaching.
Yes. And the location as well matters. How you do it, yeah.
But I guess on a more simple level, you can just have the skills that you have, the competences that you have, whether you're an expert in a specific area, knowing how to transfer those skills onto other people through, like you said, one-on-one, or just.
Yeah, technical skills are easier to transfer to people, right? Management,
so you can't teach someone patience
because people are different. The way I manage Mr. A is different from the way I'm going to manage Mr. B. Otherwise, there will be chaos. People are different. People respond to situations, the same situations, differently. So you have to, so that's why when you're coaching someone, a very good way is for the person to observe and ask questions.
Yeah.
And pick each topic, discuss with the person, ask questions, provide step-by-step ways of resolving any issue at hand.
Yeah. So asking questions is key.
Yeah.
When you're coaching. So thank you so much, Adebayo. That draws the management discussion to a close. Thank you for coming and volunteering here. And
You're welcome.
Without further ado, we're going to move on to the final section of the discussion, which is with international development by Oyinkan. So Oyinkan, are you here? But before we do that, we have the final poll of the day, which is, does anyone know what careers in international development can look like? Because I acknowledge that it's quite a niche career that you can go into. So if you'd answer these questions, and we'll see what people in the audience think. Okay, it's quite polarized. This is a great distribution of answers, to be honest. Adebayo, what do you think? Do you know what a career in international development would look like?
I have a vague idea.
Vague idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'd say.
Mm-hmm. I just wanted to say before you just announce the answers. Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
31% have a good idea, 46% don't, and 23% have no clue. Interesting.
Interesting.
Right. So I just wanted to say, as we move forward, feel free to just call me Oyin. Oyin is just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And should we start? Are you good? How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you. Just wanted to say for anyone who probably has questions for me, like at the end, I won't be available for that, but please do follow me on LinkedIn and send me messages on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to respond.
Nice. So I'll put the details of the LinkedIns of all the panelists at the end of the talk for networking opportunities. So let's start with international development. So Oyin, what is your role as a project manager? Because you're a project manager / consultant. So
yeah. So I think it's probably good to start with what international development is first before talking about what I'm doing in international development. So it's hard to describe because it's such a vast sector and it covers literally everything from engineering to medicine to anything you can think of, the arts, whatever it is, international development is there. And the whole purpose of international development is basically the international community coming together to provide aid. So if you've ever heard of aid, if you've ever heard of donors like the UK Department for International Development, if you've ever heard of USAID, if you've ever heard of Médecins Sans Frontières, which is basically Doctors Without Borders. So the international development is quite broad. It includes humanitarian as well as, international development projects. And so it also includes the charity sector as well as the private sector, which is where I work in. So there are different sectors. So you have the charity sector, you have the private sector, and then you have the public sector, which is with the government or with, or you can be like an international civil servant working with like the UN or any other multilateral organization. I hope that gives a better understanding. And then in terms of my role as a project manager / consultant,
on a day-to-day basis.
On a day-to-day basis, so I support the UK Department for International Development in delivering projects across the world, not just the UK Department for International Development. And if you want to get into international development, the one thing you need to know is abbreviations are key. So if you hear me say DFID, if you hear me say FCO, if you hear me say the UN, those are all like normal development jargon. That's how we communicate. But I'm trying my best to not do that. So it's a mouthful. So I work with DFID, I work with the FCO, I work with the UN. I've worked for an organization called the Global Fund for Ending Modern Slavery. So that's GFEMS. And those types of organizations, what I do with them, they come to us with like a request for proposal. We write a proposal. Maybe, for example, GFEMS wanted us to do some scoping studies on modern slavery in East Africa. So the countries that were covered were Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda. So they wanted us to find out, what were the things that were causing issues of modern slavery when people from there migrate to the GCC countries. And GCC countries are basically the Gulf Cooperation countries, so like your Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, a lot of the countries within the Arab Gulf area.
Yeah.
So they want to say it's more like, for example, the request for proposal is basically like, imagine it's like an essay, and then you have to answer the essay question and say, this is how we're going to do it. This is our methodology. This is how we'll deliver. This is how we'll mitigate against risks that will or can occur, as well as, any other political and socioeconomic conditions that we think are relevant to be able to deliver on the project. So when we do win these proposals, then I manage these projects. Sometimes I'm also involved in the project from like a technical aspect, maybe like as a researcher, or maybe it depends on my technical capacity, basically. If it's an area that I feel like I can deliver on, like modern slavery, yeah, great. But if it's an area like, for example, I have a project that's on creating a business case for the country of Vanuatu. They want to ban plastics, but want to create local business opportunities that can help them with packaging, but without using plastics anymore. So I don't have any knowledge of plastics and materials, so I can't do that. So I just kind of manage the delivery of the project.
Yeah.
So it really just varies. And the team that I currently work in is the resilience team. So they do a lot of work around social protection, which is basically like your universal basic income, and trying to help developing countries to have those kind of systems in place, or in humanitarian crisis situations like Syria, like northern Nigeria, like Lebanon, looking at how cash transfers can be made to people who desperately need money to survive. So, and we also do some work on like retrofitting for like buildings in Nepal. It's really broad, from agriculture to,
pretty much.
It's everything.
It's a lot. It's pretty much everything you see on the news. Like,
exactly.
Someone manages that. You talk of the UN, you talk of solving ending modern slavery, famines, all these things, and a question has just come in. We'll answer that. Oh yeah, that's actually the next question we're moving on to. Annie, thank you. But yeah, no, that's really interesting, and I like what you said about like an essay question. Someone comes to you with a problem, you analyze it, you research on how can you provide a solution to this, or how can you come close to that. And wow, that must be very packed job.
It can be. It has its moments where it can be really big. It all really varies, because at the moment I'm working on a lot of like small projects, so they're not intense. But now I'm moving on to large projects that are actually focused on Nigeria. So looking at how to support Nigeria with infrastructure development, as well as supporting the education governance system in Nigeria. So those are going to be really, really, really huge multi-million pound projects. And I envision that it'll be a lot more busy than I am now.
Wow, it's interesting. It's so, yeah. Well, okay. So anyone who's interested in economics, who's interested in international development.
So like international, it's so broad. Like you can come from an economic background, you can come from any possible background, really. I think what's necessary if you want a career in economies, exactly.
Thank you. And so moving on, which relates to the question that Kenny asked. What was your pathway to international development? Considering I think you studied law at university. So what was your path to?
So my first degree was law. So I have an LLB, and I studied that at the University of Birmingham. Upon, I would say, my second year of university, I knew that corporate law wasn't for me, at least at that time. Yeah. Although I have different feelings about that now. But anyway, at that time, corporate law wasn't for me. And that was basically all that I could see while I was at university. We had lots of firms that would come and, you know, you wanted to, it was almost like if you're studying law, you have to become a corporate lawyer. And I just couldn't get with the corporate law jargon. It just wasn't my vibe. Ever since like during my A-levels, I knew that I was interested in human rights. And so what I did in my second year was to volunteer in Ghana on a human rights project with a charity called Projects Abroad. There are so many different ways actually to volunteer abroad, because Projects Abroad was quite expensive and there are cheaper ways to go about it. I didn't know at the time. So that was the first time I heard about international development, when I was working in Ghana. And then I started researching how to get into, honestly, Google is your friend. Like, honestly, I'm not even gonna lie to you. The reason why I'm in my career today, it was type in how to have a career in, like, what do you have to do to get a career in international development? And I know The Guardian, actually, I think that was one of the first articles I read, and it talked about the different pathways into development, about the kind of skills that you needed to have to get into development. So that was my first step. And then by my third year, part of the things that the Guardian article said was that you need a master's degree. So I started thinking about what I wanted to do for my master's. Weirdly enough, I didn't want to do an MSc. I was like, okay, I've studied it. I have an LLB. I want to do an LLM, but is there a way to get like an LLM in development?
For people who don't know what an LLM, LLB, what are they?
So basically, an LLB is a qualifying law degree. There are different types of law degrees. And if you want to be a lawyer, you need to make sure that you're studying a qualifying law degree. So a qualifying law degree, they're called LLBs. So that's Bachelor of Laws. So there are other ones that are like Bachelor of Arts in Law. If you want to be a lawyer, don't study that. Just go for the LLB. So I studied that, and then I knew that I also wanted an LLM, which was a Master of Laws, rather than like MSc, which is like Master of Science, or an MA, which is a Master of Arts. And a lot of like the international development focused degrees were either MAs or MSc. Nothing wrong with those, absolutely nothing wrong with those, but it was just like a personal preference for me, that I just thought I wanted an LLM that hopefully would combine law and international development, because those were really where my interest was. It was how the law shapes development, and my undergrad degree dissertation was actually on that. So I did my degree on law and development. So thankfully I was able to find... Sorry?
I said, so you were kind of already on that path, even as a lawyer, like studying law.
Yeah. So because I think it's very important, like, to do a lot of research, and also make sure that whatever you do, like you at university, for example, you get optional courses. And my dissertation at my university was optional, but I decided to take it up because I knew that I wanted to do something that I was really interested in. I was bored of tax law. I was bored of all the other types of laws that I was doing. And I knew that law and development was what got me going. And so I focused my first degree dissertation on law and development, looking at how economic, social, and cultural rights needed to be upheld alongside civil and political rights for development purposes. So from then on, that was kind of what inspired me to want to have a master's degree that combined both law and development. And I found that at Warwick University, which is very unique. Not a lot of universities offer that at all as an LLM. So looking at international development law and human rights. So I studied that at Warwick, and it was a real eye-opener. And it was one of those things where it was like, wow, the world is a really messed up place and you can't really find justice anywhere. So it's the reality of things. Even working, I'm working in the private sector. And while I was studying, you're taught that capitalism is the reason why inequalities exist today, but I'm also part of the capitalist system, even though I'm working in the international development sector. So it's a catch-22, but it's kind of the world that we're living. And I think sometimes academia gives you like a idealized opinion of what the world it should be, and the reality is the world is like completely separate from that. So yeah, I hope. Yeah.
Thank you. But before we move on to my next question, firstly, Kenny said that she took a similar route to Oyin. She has an LLM in public international law, which is quite interesting. And thank you. And then we have a question from Algar, which links to the previous question I asked. can Oyin expand on cheaper volunteering opportunities? Like you said, you volunteered in Ghana under the Projects Abroad scheme.
Yes. So Projects Abroad is fine. It's great. But a cheaper way to go about it is to do the International Civil Service, which is offered by the UK government. And you basically have to fundraise like about, I think, and don't quote me, please do your research. I think it's about £800, and then they fund the rest of it. And I think they give you a stipend. So I think you can do it between. I think you can volunteer for up to about 3 months in a particular country. So, and there's different countries. I know people who went to Tanzania, people who've gone to different countries in South Asia. Yeah, I was particularly interested in Africa, so that's why I decided to go to Ghana. Yeah, so I hope that answers the question. And there's other ones as well. There's Tier Fund. I think Tier Fund is also cheaper than Project Abroad, but Project Abroad honestly is really great as well. It's just a bit more expensive.
Thank you. I hope that answered your question, Aga. So next question from me is, I think we covered this just briefly, but what type of people work in this sector? And I just want the audience to know that whether you're an engineer, whether you're in the tech sector, management sector, there are so many opportunities for you in international development. So what type of people work in this area?
I mean, you basically said it. Anybody can work in international development. I have a colleague who studied media, and she was working as like a project manager in Dubai, organizing weddings and events. And at some point she moved on to become like an air hostess with Emirates, and she did that for a few years, and now she's working at DAI as a project manager consultant. So it really doesn't matter what you studied at university, so long as you are able to show how the skills that you gained, whether in your studies or in your previous work experiences, can apply to working in the international development sector. And one thing that I feel like everybody should learn when it comes to the job market, apart from like technical stuff, like if you want to be a doctor, you gotta have a medicine degree. If you want to be an engineer, you kind of need to have an engineering degree. But for the most part, most other jobs, I feel like you just need the soft skills and the can-do attitude to be able to apply yourself. And one key thing that I always say is just have a commercial awareness about the industry that you are trying to be in. So if you want to work in the international development sector, for example, maybe like in an NGO or in a multilateral organization, you need to understand what international relations are. You need to understand what foreign relations, foreign policy, you need to know what's going on in the world in terms of politics, in terms of the different foreign relation interests that exist. So whatever you study, it doesn't matter. You can go into development in any way. But a lot of people who tend to be working in this sector tend to come from economics background, sociology, anthropology, law. Those are like, I would say maybe like PPE, which is like philosophy, politics, economics, international relations, history. But it doesn't really matter. You can do anything.
Because I want to hopefully end up in the international development sector as an economist in the future. So it's quite interesting for you to say that. And I think Kenny said again that she's on the route to a career transition into international development. So thank you for that, Kenny.
Yeah.
And moving on to the final question for international development. And once again, please, everyone leave questions in the chat box for any career. Now, this is the end of the talk, so we'll take questions from any career.
Sorry, just to be clear, do you have any targeted questions for me now that I can quickly answer before I have to go?
Oh, no more of those, but
okay.
People can ask you on LinkedIn. Okay, so how did you grow in your career, and what are the opportunities in international development for career growth?
Oh, okay. Okay, so this is for me then.
Yeah, for me. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, what I did, to be fair, it's kind of hard because I'm still very new in my career to be able to answer that question. But how I would say maybe the best way for me to say is how I got where I am, which is basically after studying my degrees, and I worked at the Commonwealth Secretariat And that happened through what kind of like, one thing I always say to people is, if you're interested in something, talk about it. Anybody that's willing to listen to you, they will hear it. And when an opportunity comes around that area, they will think of you and possibly recommend you for it. So how I got my job at the Commonwealth Secretariat, my mom was at a party. She was talking to someone who worked in HR at the Commonwealth Secretariat. And she was like, oh, my daughter is interested in this type of whatever, and got an interview and then got in there. And the international development sector is very important to be able to talk about yourself and network, because that's how a lot of people get opportunities. I work with consultants on a daily basis that were referred to us by like other colleagues who have worked with them somewhere before, not necessarily because, they were looking for the job and they applied. It's a lot of times word of mouth is very important. Yeah. And then so after I worked at the Commonwealth Secretariat, that was after I graduated from my master's, right? So then I was kind of in a position where I couldn't find jobs. Like I didn't know what to start looking at, where to start. I applied to the civil service because that's a good place to start when you're looking for a job in the sector. And then I did a lot of networking. I went to a lot of networking events. I met people with like minds, and I spoke to someone else who studied my degree, and she recommended the current company that I'm working at. They had a job vacancy. I applied, and after a couple of different occasions, I finally got my job and where I am. And in terms of progression, it's important to be able to, for example, take courses that solidify your knowledge and solidify your expertise. So one thing I did recently was to take up a project management for development professional certification. And so like that just kind of helps you to kind of say that, yeah, I worked in this industry, but I'm also certified in being able to like deliver projects in this industry.
That's really good. That's really, really practical. Because a lot of people think, apply for schemes, apply for different programs, internships, and that's the only way to get a job.
So I just saw someone asking if that was a Prince 2. No, it's not Prince 2. Prince 2 is for like general project management, and there's nothing wrong with getting the Prince 2. I think it's also very much applicable to different industries. But what I got was the project manager. So it's called PMD Pro. So that's project management for development professionals. So it's quite specific to the development sector.
Please write that down in the chat box, Oyin, if you can.
I'm on my phone, so I'm not sure how to access the chat box. So it's project management for development professionals. It's offered by Bond. That's BOND. And Bond is actually a good resource for anyone who's looking for jobs in international development and just kind of like knowledge about what's going on in the sector. Bond UK, they're a really good resource.
Thank you. So just to summarize what you said, talk to people about what you do. I guess this applies to any career, any industry that you want to enter. Talk to people around you, and you'd be surprised of how many people have networks to the areas you want to get into. And secondly, I really like what you said about developing your skill set, your knowledge. You said the certification that you got. So, and this actually applies for students as well. You don't need to be at university stage. There is actually a website for students called MOOC, MOOC, I'll type that in now, where there are so many different career paths, opportunities, knowledge. Like, for example, what's it called? It's like this scheme where you can learn about development, about entrepreneurship, about international development, law, all these different career types, and just get more knowledge about that, if that makes sense. So I definitely recommend it. Check it out if you're a student under the age of 19. You can be an adult and still use it. But yeah, like you said, develop your skill set. And that is the end of the international development talk. Thank you so much for coming, Oyin. And that was really cool. I think that's all the questions for international development. And if you have to go?
Yeah.
That was great. Thank you. And we'll move on to general questions. Okay, have a good day.
All right, bye.
Okay, we're going to move on to general questions for all of the panelists now. And I think we had a question from Opeyemi earlier on in the discussion. So if Muyiwa and Dionne are here, I think this question is targeted at you guys. Muyiwa and Dionne?
Yeah.
Okay. So, hello?
Yeah, we're there.
Okay, nice. Thank you.
I can take a first stab at it. I believe the question is often said that engineers and technical people are not able to sell themselves well. How can technical people improve their personal branding?
Exactly.
We said it earlier. I think one key thing with techie people, which I'm lucky enough I'm one of them, is you're used to dealing with numbers, right? So communicating numbers to people becomes a challenge, but you can also use it as an advantage, right? So when you're writing a report, make it in a one-slide PowerPoint presentation with bullets, right? That way, it's something that you understand, is your comfort zone, right? And selling it to people will be easy. That will be the first step. Then once you've done that first bit, you ask for feedback, right? Then they'll come back, oh yeah, it's a good one-slider. Can you put a little bit of history on the top of it and where you see the next step? Then that way you start improving yourself on how to improve that reporting capabilities. And that way you can start selling yourself more. And one good plus that you have as a techie person or an engineer is from your school days or from your training, you've always been told to talk to anybody anyway. You can talk to people, you can ask the question. So the people interaction shouldn't be difficult. So that way you can ask more and talk to people and sell. But the key part, do your report, network, and also, I don't think we mentioned this earlier, look for a mentor. Get somebody in your organization, in your school, to mentor you. These are people that you can talk to one-to-one about how to improve yourself, and they can then help you in that line of business or school that you are to walk you through that. That's what I would recommend.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really good. If Dionne has any more input, do you have anything else to say, Dionne?
When it comes to, selling yourself, I always say, as cliche as it sounds, is to be yourself. Like, one of my best selling points about me when I go to interviews or, they ask me what's different about me to different candidates, even though I don't know what those other candidates have said, I'd be honest with myself, with them, and tell them what my weaknesses are and how I've improved on that weakness. And come across as sometimes quite hard on yourself. If you want to see the best out of yourself and you want that company to like you and see that you're different, be honest that you're not always going to have it together, because it's quite easy to go into interviews sometimes or presentations and pretend like you know it all. Like Muyiwa said, sometimes stick to what you know first, and when you get that feedback, you build on that. So I can go into an interview quite confidently thinking that I'm good at communicating and I'm good at presentations, but in fact, that's not what they're looking for with what you offer. They're looking for something else. So sometimes it's good to ask for feedback and also ask, how can I improve on this? Even if you think you already know it or know it all, or you think it's your positives, be always willing to grow and then use that as your personal selling point.
Yeah.
When you're asked and you're talking about yourself, say what you thought you weren't good at and how you built on that, and that you're willing to keep doing that.
Thank you, Dionne. That's really key. I think I remember my own school teacher telling me one time that employers are really looking for learnability. And I think Muyiwa said as well, someone who's flexible and takes the initiative to learn. So thank you both for your answer.
Oyinda, can I add something to that?
No, definitely.
Technical people tend to take the back seat when they've done something. They usually leave it to maybe whoever is leading the team or someone else that is not that technical to go and present or showcase what they've done.
Yeah.
Always try, without being annoying, try to be the one to showcase what you've done. When you make whenever you solve a problem and there's a need to communicate that problem is solved, try, if you are the one that will send the email that is done, give, like Muyiwa said, bullet point of what the issues were, what are the steps you've taken, and if there's anything as a follow-up, you need to put it there. With that, you are building your brand. They know this person knows how to solve this. He knows how to diagnose things. He knows how to be clear about what is done. And with that, you become more visible within the organization.
And that's really key, relating to the question, as a technical person, to improve your personal branding is by letting people know what you're capable of. And yeah, so combinedly, all three panelists gave very, very good advice regarding that. And since we have 3 minutes left, I'd like to ask if there's any more advice or any more questions. Firstly, if there's any more advice that any of the panelists can quickly give, let's say like 30-second advice for the audience before we all leave. And once again, if anyone has any more questions, please leave them in the chat box.
Sorry, quickly, let me say this. I forgot to say this earlier on. There are organizations that do so many apprenticeship programs. One that I'm aware of is Vodafone. Vodafone are offering some project management apprenticeship in different areas of the organization, where we employ you, pay you monthly, and they will sponsor your university degree as well.
Wow.
So many organizations are doing something relating to that. Try and you can research such, and it will help you in building your career going forward.
Thank you, that's really useful. I've put that in the chat box for everyone to go and check out. Well, we have a question actually from Timi Adetunji. If you get a degree in maths or economics, how would you be able to get into management?
Yeah, so you can get into management with any degree, any career, right? All you need to do is, with your technical skills in maths, economics, or whatever it is, try to put in some of the soft skills that shows your leadership skills. And as you go on within, even while you are in school, start building your leadership skills, like being the leader of a group, trying to take responsibilities at every facet of life. With that, you will be comfortable with leading. You'll be comfortable with bringing yourself forward to lead people. And then do courses in management. Even while you're at university, there are so many courses that you can minor in management that will solidify your foundation for management.
Thank you, Adebayo. So for Timmy, once again, like Adebayo said, you have opportunities to demonstrate your soft skills, your leadership skills in every aspect of life. So whether you are in secondary school or university, put yourself in positions of leadership, volunteer yourself, go for leadership roles in school, whether that's head boy, whether that's, leading a team. And it doesn't really matter what you study, as long as you can demonstrate these roles. I guess that's for you. So thank you so much, Adebayo. If Dionne and Muyiwa have any extra advice they'd like to give to the panelists, please can you leave?
I would say mine would just be, we said it throughout all these discussions, ask questions, all right? Constantly be curious. If you're curious, you will be successful. That's what I'll say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Dionne, do you have any further words?
Yeah, pretty much this, what I already said. If you get as much work experience as you can, as Moya said, ask as many questions as you can, have a mentor, never be, closed off to learning. Even if it's something that you don't want to do, it's always going to be beneficial to you. So always be open-minded, ask questions. No question is too silly. And most importantly, enjoy it. If you're passionate about it, you will enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, you're not passionate about it, don't do it.
Thank you so much, Dionne and Muyiwa and Adebayo once again. So be curious, ask questions, and like Dionne just said, expose yourself, learn about stuff. So thank you to everyone who has joined into this discussion. Thank you to the panelists once again, and thank you for everyone who left questions in the chat box. And I really hope this talk was useful to you. I'm going to leave now the LinkedIn accounts of all the panelists. So if you guys would like to network with them afterwards. Or Dionne, actually, could you guys leave your LinkedIns in the chat box if that's okay?
Yeah, sure.
And then after this, the talk will come to a close. If you think of questions that you have afterwards, please feel free to either email me at oyinda@blackexcellence.com or message any one of the panelists. And I'll also send a follow-up email after this talk with all the details that we've mentioned in the chat box to follow up with. So don't worry about missing out on that. Okay. Thank you, Latifat. Thank you, Algar. Thank you, everybody. And this is the end of the talk. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you can just leave your LinkedIn name.